So good morning, Nabi. Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm already saying good morning. All right. Thank you, Talking Trade Platform. It's always a pleasure speaking here anyway. Always, always, always. And earlier today too, I went on the Talking Trade. I think I just generally caught up on some of the chats that had happened on that platform. And I've seen a whole lot. This Talking Trade platform is really rich. Like, we're always updated what's going on. We already have our comments up there. And I picked a few things that I also added to my presentation. So as a lead presenter, I will take us through a few things. Hoping I'll be within my timing. I don't want to get too emotional about stuff, but let me just say that this is what I'm going to present is to guide conversation, basically. Thank you, Mr. Boyde, once again. Thank you, Lady K, and the people behind Talking Trade for this privilege. So let me just move quickly. So my first slide here, I presented a few facts because the topic is export for survival. And let me say that I was actually in that walk. I joined NEPC for that walk, the walk for export for survival. And it was quite interesting, actually. I thoroughly did enjoy that walk, and I felt it was just important we did that. These are the facts I would like to present. First, that non-oil exports accounted for more than 66% of Nigeria's total exports in the 60s. And this will help us know where we are right now, actually, how we have gone so down. Secondly, in the last quarter of 2018, non-oil export was as low as 3.4% of total exports of Nigeria, which is very, very low. We can't compare that now from the 60s to where we are now in 2018. And the oil sector, that's oil, accounts for up to 95% of the country's foreign exchange earnings and 80% of its budgetary revenues. And I've quoted my sources here. I have to put this because these are like staggering facts. And to corroborate further that export for survival is not cliche. It's what we should really take up very seriously. In 2020, you also could attest when we're in the middle of the crisis of COVID, that a barrel of crude oil became cheaper than a bottle of Coke. We're all alive at that time. And that was also another shock, that crude oil prices were almost in a negative. In fact, people wanted to dispose their crude oil. Nobody was buying. It was that bad. And we had crude oil become cheaper than a bottle of Coke. So in an economy where most of the income, the oil sector accounts for 95% of its foreign exchange, if a situation like this arises, what would have expected? That could have been a turning point for us in Nigeria. It could have been a turning point, actually. That's because we also expected that the government would have put things, strategies in place to boost its intervention in the non-oil sector. So it still means that we pay lip service to the Nigeria's diversification agenda. That's just what it means. And we're talking about this diversification for years on end, and we still haven't done what is necessary or what is required. It looks like if we still pay lip service or pay lip service to this diversification agenda. So when the NEPC CEO, the new administration, brought up this slogan, export for survival, when you say survival means something that is very, very, very critical. It's like someone that is drowning. At that point, he wants to just get out of the water. That's what it means. So survival is a very strong word, and we should take it as serious as it looks here. That's the way I expect the Nigerian government will look at it. Glad that NEPC is in the forefront of this agenda, and they've kind of captured it in a way that shows urgency. Export for survival. It's like we're sinking. We need to stay afloat. We need to survive. It's like we're sinking. We need to stay afloat. Right now, you can look at Nigeria's economy. A lot of things are in shambles, even right now. Inflation rate. Sometimes I ask myself, how do people even eat in this town? I don't understand. In Nigeria right now, I don't understand. Because every week, I send my mate to the market. If I bought oil at 6,005, I think I bought oil last month, 6,005. By the time I went back last week, my girl bought it for 7,200. And it's not even coming down. Before I went to the 6,005, he bought it like 5,002 within a space of 3 months. It's terrible. So export for survival, we're coming there. And yes, the NEPC CEO granted his interview was in Tribune and many other newspapers. And I quoted some lines here. I actually put it here, quoting that And I'm going to read that. It says, speaking at the weekend in Abuja, the executive director of NEPC, Dr. Ezra Yakusa, called on Nigerians to embrace the export of made in Nigeria products to boost the country's economy, create jobs, and attract foreign direct investment. Now, some of us we've been in chat rooms, even on Talking Trade. We've been in different platforms where we've talked about how federal government is looking for FDI, like they're looking for it like, let me see, they're charging like a bull in a room. But of course, exports is the answer. Exports is the answer, not draconian regulatory, policies just showing up from nowhere, not breathing down the neck of exporters. And I don't know, it's just horrible. What has happened in the last 2 months keeps us wondering that the key to attracting foreign direct investment is building a virile export sector. How do we make this happen? The executive director of NEPC said it will boost our country's economy because, yes, it will drive local production. And when we are driving local production, we are creating jobs in the process. In Nigeria, for example, we have a lot of young people that don't have jobs, but Nigerians want to work. Nigerians want to work. Give them the jobs and you'll be surprised of how they are going to do it. Yesterday, I hosted the Idea Factory and I brought in Jael Oliver. Jael Oliver is American, actually, but the idea that he brought in, he implemented it in Nigeria. He's a social entrepreneur and he's the owner of Hello Tractor. He said some very beautiful things about Nigeria. And he said all the staff he has employed are Nigerians and they're great young people. They've really contributed to what Hello Tractor is today. And he spoke about these young people with such, he was so happy that he was able to see Nigeria even in another light as good. These are good people. So we have young people that want to work. If we think of an export-driven economy, then we begin to look at how we can increase our local production and put all the necessary structures in place. You'll be surprised how that we're going to create jobs for the teeming youths that are running every day. Some of them are into drugs, some of them are into yahoo, some of them are they're carrying guns every day. Export seems to answer some of these questions, if not all. And here, the CEO also said NEPC is working assiduously to create an enabling environment for exporters. And of course, it started with sensitization, which was that particular match that I joined them in. So I just kind of summarized that here. So you have these three wheels that are driving each other. Export is driving foreign direct investment. And of course, export is driving jobs because of the local production. Industries will begin to spring up. We begin to look very more closely to quality issues. And the impact is massive if you do that well. Now, there's another dilemma too. Also last year, the DG of NAFDAC granted an interview and said over 96% of Nigerian cultural commodities are rejected by the EU. I purposely use this photo of Prof because it shows exasperation. Like she was worried. She was worried. So I now look at that whole gamut, I looked at it from two perspectives, okay? So, because when she was asked why this is so, what did she say? She said exporters are boycotting regulatory procedures and that all the food products rejected abroad never went through the scrutiny of both NAFDAC and NAQS. Well, she is right to a very good extent. But do you know that when the process becomes cumbersome, people will begin to cut corners? That's what it means. People would naturally not cut corners if they have an enabling business environment. So I'm looking at how are we going to build an enabling business environment so that we can stop those that are cutting corners actually, and then getting out of this quagmire that we found ourselves. Because it's a matter of integrity as well in international markets. When we have up to 76% of our commodities rejected, our name is in red. How do we deal with this situation? Of course, she went forward to say that the storage facility is very poor for micro and small businesses, and on she went. And here is a real dilemma. As the executive secretary of MPNEN, that's the Network of Practicing Non-Oil Exporters of Nigeria, we've had about 5 town hall meetings. And each time we raise the issues. What are the issues for exporters? What do we want? What do exporters want? What is the cry of exporters? What are our cries? Of course, these are the real issues. First of all, port challenges in Nigeria is horrible. There's a terrible port logistics. And right now, I'm not coming to that slide, but if you look at the number of days that even containers get to leave Nigeria, most of the time is over 45 days. Yes, 30 to 45 days. Compared to other neighboring African countries, where your containers leave in 5 to 10 days. Now you have to take a business decision, actually, because even the buyer cannot wait for 45 days. So port challenges have become a big issue. High transaction cost that comes from, of course, our production, interest rates, and all the other logistical aspects of production that has just put in all the costs we're looking at, even infrastructure. We're looking at lack of transparency in export facilitating agencies of government. And I think the lack of transparency is probably due to corruption. Lack of financing for exports, and where it's available, it's inflexible. High cost of production. Yeah, okay, I'm kind of repeating again, due to lack of infrastructure. Then one big deal is a lack of synergy between export supporting MDAs of government. And because of this, we are seeing multiple taxations. Some are so related, and yet you're wondering, why am I paying twice for the same thing that could have just costed one thing? Lack of synergy is causing a lot of problems. Our last town hall, where we hosted NAFDAC, there was a big issue that was raised by 2 or 3 exporters right there. And they were asking, why is NAFDAC and NEPC not in synergy? Because we work with NEPC, they prepare us for the international market. They get us our voluntary certifications, the third-party certifications. Some of them get FDA certifications, they get ISO. Then they get to NAFDAC, and NAFDAC says you cannot put those things on your label. It's just counterproductive. NEPC is preparing for the market. NAFDAC is saying, no, you cannot put your certifications on our labels. Oh my God, that was crazy. That was crazy. And I remember we hosted a group of NAFDAC ladies in one of my trainings. And one of them made a comment. I felt so disappointed. He said, have you people even served your local markets? Why are you thinking about export? I was like, my dear, can't you remember that I came for an export meeting? So this is crazy. When NEPC is doing one thing and NAFDAC is doing something counterproductive to that same one thing. And these are the things we've been talking about. Non-compliance, of course. I also try to look inward too. We can point all the fingers to government, but definitely it's not all fingers should point to government. There's also a part where we need to fill. There's a role we have to play as well. Yeah, so I will talk about non-compliance, cutting corners as something that we need to deal with. That's the people factor. The last two, lack of enabling policies and regulations. Ill-formed, draconian policies, I tell you, from lack of consultation. And this has happened in recent times. Of course, when we had the price verification mechanism that CBN came out with, of course, we had a bit of a challenge with that. Most exporters had to cry out. In fact, NEPC had to quickly do a kind of a town hall. But with all the engagements that CBN had exporters, and for which I attended the Abuja leg, it was obvious that they were not ready to change their minds about what they have said they were going to do. All they came to do in those meetings was to just force it down our throats and just let us know that it's going to start on February 1. That's what they wanted to do. They were not ready. So what is the essence? You said you want to engage exporters, and then you bring us into all these consultation meetings, and yet our voices still don't matter. These are serious issues. And the last one here that I put is poor implementation strategies, because also it's not that we don't have policies. I really think that if we dig into the policy, our bags of policies, we do have really beautiful policies, but implementation too has been a big issue. The people factor has come into place in some of these policies, and some of these policies never even get implemented. And in some cases, we're even running foul of the same policy that we have set up. So poor implementation strategies has also been a big issue in this particular sector. These are just but a few. If we sit here today, we won't even finish. But of course, I wanted it to be balanced. Yes, government has its role to play. We as well, we have our roles to play in this matter, but we need an enabling environment to make it work. Now, today I was reading through our platform. And of course, these are news stories making the rounds right now. CBN, customs, others disagree over import and export policies. Okay? Now, CBN, that means customs. CBN is even consulting other agencies of government in the same, on these normal export issues. They just go ahead and do their thing. Now, customs is saying no. When will we get off this racket? I don't understand. This was a nation newspaper. Central Bank of Nigeria and the Nigeria Customs are opposing each other over the evaluation, e-invoice policy for import and export introduced by the Apex Bank. It's a shame when we begin to see things like this happening. And customs is a major institution in Nigeria as well when it comes to trade. So if our major trade institutions are not even talking to each other, then we have not started. So it's like dragging each other, and it's in the newspapers. Then, of course, another thing making the rounds, of course, Nigerian Customs Service. This was in this day of March 4, yes, as well. Nigerian Customs Service yesterday assured members of the Senate that it will generate 3.019 trillion into the Federation account this year. And when I read that on Talking Trade platform, somebody said, from where? As in, where is this money going to come from? And I think Miss Vicky responded and said, from exporters now. And that's what it is. See, when I read this thing as well, which wasn't today, I read it before. I'm like, where is this money going to come from? I hope there are not all sort of charges will not show up. All sort of, man, we are paying dearly for what we want to do in this country. Our exporters are paying dearly, and a lot of us are paying dearly for even doing the right things. We're slammed with all sort of tariffs. Some they're even business. We don't know where they're coming from. I remember the last, was it the third one we did in August last year, the town hall. Chief Dafinone too was talking about shipping lines. They just wake up and say, these are their charges. So we can't even, why is it changing? Why are you just fixing prices anyhow? What is controlling this market? It's like a free fall. He was also talking about it. So I'm wondering, and when somebody had asked, where is this money coming from? And Ms. Vicky said, from exporters. I just smiled, because indeed we're in for it. And then the last one I read, also on that platform, the March 4 this same year as well, IMF says Nigeria has failed to diversify its exports. Of course, because they've understudied us since 1990. And let me read what I also picked up from the website, from the newspaper report. So Nigeria only added 47 new products to its export portfolio during a 30-year period between 1990 and 2022. This is unlike other countries, including Tanzania and Cameroon, who added 95 new products during the same period under review. The IMF therefore advised the West African country to further diversify its exports, as doing so will be beneficial to its economy. Nigeria has failed to extensively diversify its export portfolio, a new report by the International Monetary Fund said. Now, these are issues and these are indices. This is data that is coming to us to help us rethink. We have to start rethinking this export for survival. We have to start rethinking. Because even IMF is making a point that 30 years, within a 30-year period, we have only added 47 new products, whereas other countries that are not even as big as us, perhaps they're not as powerful, they don't have all the access that we have, the human capital and all that. They have added at least 95 new products during the same period. We have what it takes. That's what it means. And there's a worse dilemma for us, and this bleeds my heart, truly, that Nigerians are now exporting through neighboring countries. I have friends that export through Ghana, they export through Gambia right now. And do you know that when we export through the ports of these other countries, it's counted to them as their exports? Nigeria, so that means even our export potential is underreported, because some of these ones are even diverted to other countries. Anyway, so we are losing, even in terms of the data we're even capturing. We are not reporting enough, because most of these exports are even diverted to other ports where things are working. And I can't blame anyone. If your containers will leave in 5 days, and if you leave in 5 days when you take it to Togo, and you are able to do all the in-betweens to get it there, or to get your products there and then put in a container and off it goes, is it not a business decision? So can we really say Nigerians are doing this, are doing wrong? Well, it's a business decision. And recently, one of our highest exporters of commodities, I won't say their name, but in the top 10 exporters in 2018, I saw they were number 10 on that list. They do cocoa, they do cashew, they're the largest. Recently, as in largest indigenous company, because the other companies in that top 10, they were all multinationals. This is one of the large, and is an indigenous company, top 10, 2018. They said they're moving their operations to Ghana or Togo or someplace. They're tired. They're just tired. And you know how much we're going to lose by that? Multinationals are even relocating as well to neighboring countries. The multinationals that even account for the major, like you look at 100 top exporters in Nigeria, multinationals bear about 70%, if not more. And Nigeria is benefiting from that because they're repatriating the export proceeds. So FX is leaving. FDI, the pocket is going down. If you allow these things to happen, but they're happening. So what are we saying? It's like we don't know the impact of these things. That's what worries me. So someone on a platform I belong to said Guinness is relocating to Ghana. The operations is going to Ghana, and they're about to sell their property in Ikeja. And the price was really nice, like 8 billion, which is really cool because they're selling everything, they're not moving anything. And I responded on that platform. I said, as much as I feel this is an opportunity for someone to buy the property, it bleeds my heart to see that Guinness is leaving Nigeria. And as it's leaving, it's taking with it the jobs with it. It's taking the jobs with it. Of course, some of the people in that company now will lose their jobs. Will lose their jobs. Secondly, the taxes they pay to government, the repatriated proceeds and all of that, they are carrying it. Ghana is the one that's going to be getting those benefits. Are we getting this thing right? If I had to write it there, and I wrote it with my heart bleeding, truly, that this calls for concern. And because of the draconian enforcing of certain things are never convenient for exporters, you say you must, in the middle of a transaction, you just say you must do something, CBN just puts up, oh my God, and everybody's running helter-skelter. For your information, people are cutting corners. NAFDAC will say, if you want to export, you come in 20 days, we do clinical, we do a test. Somebody is wondering, man, the person that wants to buy my products is waiting for me now. There's a contract in place. There's a shipping date on this thing. You're telling me that I should wait for 20 days? How? So some of them wouldn't even go through NAFDAC anymore. That's why the cutting corners will not stop until we find a way around this thing and put the interest of the exporters first. Because the export contract, in our export contract, we need to honor it. It's about the buyer and the seller. The government institutions are to create an enabling environment for us to make it work. But instead of facilitating trade, we're impeding it. That's what I'm seeing in some of the mindsets. And I don't know, because our government institutions, perhaps it's the money they want to make, but they've totally forgotten that money is not, when we look at the damage being done, we can't even put them side by side. And again, of course, exporters will prefer exporting primarily unprocessed commodities, which even now attracts low FX revenue. We've been talking about infrastructure. We've been talking about lack of processing facilities. This is why exporting primarily unprocessed commodities seems to be even more convenient. Let me just send it. Because if I want to start processing, by the time I look at all my cost even does not become competitive anymore and all that. So there's just so much going on. And exporters are discouraged as well. People have closed shop. And we are talking about, we want to drive the export agenda. NEPC saying everybody must export. SMEs come into this basket. See, I did a training for some women in Kano. By the time we're done, I think Bamdele was a resource. By the time Bamdele finished, Bamdele said, how many of you still want to export? Well, like less than 20% of the room raised their hands. I found that very worrisome. I'm like, oh my God. When they heard about some of the, we did risk assessment, we did a couple of things. Man, those women just said, it's like, you're going to hold your export to. Let me just be selling in my local market. And that's a fact. When all these things happen, people close shop. What are the things government have done? I'll run through this. Of course, we had the export expansion grant to support active exporters. But of course, is this even working? There was a time it was pegged down, it was discontinued, but now we're back. And there's a whole lot of backlogs that have not yet been paid. So there's a whole lot about the EEG. But I hope that once we are done with all the clearances of the backlogs, things will be back properly. Then we had NEPC had this export expansion facility program throughout last year, and they worked on 16 programs, implemented 5 work streams on capacity building, financing, market development, infrastructure, institutional strengthening. 50 billion was released for this particular project. Quite a number of exporters got monies to at least revive them because of the COVID. It was meant to cushion the effects of COVID-19 pandemic anyway. I was a beneficiary because I did some capacity building programs and was funded by NEPC, and that helped us to train about 120 women actually in 2 states, which was great. And right now we're even still doing mentorship and getting them to be on board this. But then let's ask ourselves too, with the EEFP, the project ended officially in January. Is there a way to measure the impact of this project? Because what is not measured cannot be managed. That's the truth. What is not measured cannot even be converted to tangible results. So my call to NEPC really is, can we do an assessment of this EEFP in this broad 5 work streams to see what impact and see how it has contributed tangibly to the export development in this country? Now, recently as well, as usual, CBN came up again, okay, we are launching RT200 FX program, and the governor says it's a set of policies, plans, and programs for non-oil exports that will enable us to attain our lofty yet attainable goal. I love that, to attain our lofty yet attainable goal of $200 billion in FX repatriation, exclusively from non-oil exports over the next 3 to 5 years. That's the plan. But let me tell you something. Talk is cheap. Talk is cheap. We say talk is cheap. Very cheap. If we continue to talk and we do not see action, that's where the problem is. So, Mr. CBN Governor, we need to see how we are going to implement this thing. We need to see it. And who is involved? How do we get this done? Because implementation has been our greatest challenge. And of course, RT200 has like 5 pillars: non-oil commodities expansion, biannual non-oil export summit, non-oil FX rebate scheme, dedicated non-oil export terminal, and value-adding export facility. It's been broken down very beautifully into these five major areas where this RT200 will find expression. But it's beyond writing this in paper, it's beyond announcing it. What is the strategy? What is the strategy to get this done? How do we measure? How do we monitor? How do we evaluate? How do we know that we're making progress? How do we know? We need to begin to see those things. How is CBN going to engage the organized private sector so that we know that we can help you make this happen? Government will continue to make policies, but implementing, it's not their work. That's the truth. If CBN wants to keep implementing, it's an anomaly. It's an anomaly. Let me move off there because I'm getting so emotional right now. So I put here, there's still areas that are yet untapped, okay? And one is our services export. So I just want to put it out there because I don't know who's attending this, but we need to look at it. I remember last year when we did the our EFNEN NESIA, that's the Non-Oil Export Conference Exhibition and Awards, and we brought in Nexim, actually, he was on the panel. We talked about services export, but he said, well, there's really no framework around it yet. No MD of government would say it's taking responsibility for this and all of that. So we still need a framework. We still need to structure our services export in such a way that we can begin to earn from it. But really nothing is being said or done about it. I don't know how far we've gone with it, even maybe NEPC, I wouldn't know, but it was a challenge to us too as well that time, to see, can we put a policy brief to maybe NEPC or Nexim, but really the services export area, we are yet to tap it at all. We are currently a net importer of services. However, the potential is huge. Right now, that sector contributes more than half of Nigeria's GDP with a share of 50.79% in 2010, 52.37%, 58.2%, and 55.8% in 2013, 2015, and 2017, respectively, and a growth rate of 1.83% in 2018. I have this because we did a study, of course, when I was consulting for the Policy Development Facility, and we commissioned a report on services export. And it's in public domain. I would probably share with Talking Trade for those that want to contact that particular study that we had. But this shows that services export has a huge potential. What other areas is untapped? Of course, we have informal and unrecorded trade. We lose revenue from unrecorded trade every day. Our borders are porous. Our state government needs to wake up. They need to wake up. And then we have a lot of informal exporters that are not documented. They're not documented. And all sort of things pass our borders. Share nuts are going, cashew is going. Oh my God, I can't even start that. There was a presentation from Trade FMITI some years back, and I could see trucks of share nuts packed, ready to just pass through a particular border. I'm like, who allows this to happen to them? Who allows this to happen to them? And our eyes are open and we're seeing the trucks going. Are we okay? Our Nigerian states need to wake up. And Nigerian states will go up cap in hand. We'll go cap in hand to federal government every month to be receiving allocation. And we have our eyes open. Our export potential is just lying there in the ground. And then those that know how to pummel us are coming in and taking it away for peanuts. This is a serious matter. So if we're talking about export for survival, I said survival is a very big word. It's a very deep word. It should hit us. It means that we're sinking. We need to get above the ground. We have to get above the water. Mr. Boyede will always make reference to Obama's export initiative. And honestly, I take it everywhere I go myself, that there must be a strategy to implement our diversification agenda through export. And so I just still put this here. Okay. In 2010, Obama introduced the Obama Export Initiative, which later became the National Export Initiative, legislated under Executive Order 13534. Sorry, there's a spelling mistake somewhere there. This was created based on the understanding that for America to survive the economic recession, it needed to double its exports to the world over 5 years, so over 2010 to 2014, and through this create 5 million jobs. So I can see the metrics. I don't know whether we put metrics in the way we create our own agenda, because what cannot be measured cannot be managed. That's what it is. What cannot be measured cannot be managed. So if they say we are going to create 5 million jobs, we have put a metrics to it so we can check it out. First year, how short are we of the 5 million? Year 2, how short of you of what was left in year 1. That is what it should be. 8 cardinal objectives that this export initiative had was to increase export assistance to SMEs, to lead trade missions to promote America exports, to increase financing through its Export-Import Bank, to reduce barriers to trade and improve market access for producers, to promote federal resources currently available to assist US companies. That was very key. Increase commercial advocacy by the federal government, open new markets and enforce trade agreements. And the last was to create a framework to promote trade in services. So what is Nigeria's strategy? That's my question. That's my question right now, because we need to think different right now. Do we have a role to play? We're all here. Some of us are representing government. Some of us are individuals. We are organized private sector. We're all here. I think one of the things I would like to see us doing more, and we've been doing it. I believe in advocacy. Oh my God, I believe in advocacy. We won't stop talking until we get it done. But what kind of advocacy do we need? Evidence-based advocacy. So we need to invest in data for evidence-based advocacy. I know data is not cheap. To commission a study alone, I know how much it could be, but by His grace, we can get some support for this, but we need to invest in data so we can provide evidence when we engage with government to say, this is what it is as at yesterday. This is what is happening. Put the data, analyze in such a way that it shows the grimness of the situation. It's really key. We can't afford to just be emotional about things anymore. Then secondly, extending help with our skills and expertise. It's getting obvious that we have round pegs and square holes in many places. And I'm surprised. People that don't have any business in the ministries they are put are the ones sitting there. But of course, it's all right. But at least let's consult for some of them. I think we should. So we can help them and guide their thoughts. And then we have to keep giving feedback on performance on ongoing reforms, and then self-regulation. That's very key. Lady K, I'm sure my time is almost, let me just give me 2 more minutes. I'll be rounding this up. I put this third one saying giving feedback on the performance of ongoing reforms for a reason. And it's really key. You know, the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council, the EBS, that's the Enabling Business Environment Secretariat, for some years, and I did work with them a bit in terms of giving them input from my work from PDF. I know that they've actually tried to make a couple of reforms, make those reforms happen. But I keep seeing the people aspect of reforms, because as much as they want to reduce processes at the port, the moment they turn their backs, we're back to square one. As much as they want to say, do this, by the time EBS turns their back, we are back to square one, because the people are not ready to change. But here we are. EBS has given us what we call reports.gov.ng, and I think this is informative anyway. It may not apply to even what we're talking about, but it should apply to it somehow. So please take note of reports.gov.ng. As much as they are trying to create an enabling business environment, as much as EBS is saying, go to reports.gov.org and report. So there, when you go to the site, you see, file a complaint, and the other one is give feedback. You see this on the home page. File a complaint will mean, okay, this is what I hear is the new thing in NAFDAC, that when I apply for my certificate, it happens in 30 days. Then I go to NAFDAC, and 90 days, I've not gotten my certificate. 1 year, I'm waiting. Go to reports.gov.ng and put in what the problem is. Please, this is the situation. My certificate is still pending. 30 days is over. That is what report.gov.ng is built for. And a ticket will be generated. It gets to EBS, it gets to NAFDAC. And they follow that up to make sure that that ticket is resolved. Okay? And this is just a screen capture. But if you go to report.gov.ng, you realize that they now have the rate government agencies there. You have their top 3 for the month. You have your bottom 3. Actually, the bottom 3 for February 2020, CBN was among the bottom 3. CBN was at the bottom 3. But the top 3, interestingly, NAFDAC was there, interestingly. But I think what made NAFDAC in the top 3 was that there were only 2 complaints filed, and the 2 complaints were addressed, which means they scored 100%. Do you get it? So if only 2 people just filed a complaint, that means NAFDAC is doing well now. But if we all are filing our complaints, because we know there's a place like this, you'll be surprised at what this would also bring in telling NAFDAC that everybody is, or ABS, we won't get back to them. How come 50,000 people reported you in February? But only 2 people did, and the 2 complaints were resolved. So they got 100%. Oh, they got away with it. So this is what it looks like. Anyway, in closing, let me just wrap up by saying, export for survival is not just cliche. It is a statement of fact and should be given all the attention it deserves. Then if well understood, it connotes urgency. Urgency, a 1-point agenda that can drive all other agendas of the federal government. MDAs of government must synergize. Sorry, this should be must synergize to achieve this agenda seamlessly. And the last thing here I said is all hands must be on deck. There must be a solid handshake between government and the organized private sector. So on this note, I want to say thank you for listening. And sorry if I took longer than I should, but sometimes emotions just want to take the greatest part of me. All right, so thank you, Lady K. I'm done with my presentation. And thank you, everyone.
Oh my God, I don't even know where to start. As usual, you have nailed it on the head again and again. As usual, thank you so very much.
A word from me before you the other the next.
Yes, a word from you before
if you don't
word. Can you see my screen? Can you see my screen before you come on?
We can see your screen.
Okay, I will be doing an injustice if I don't do this. Please, everyone, because I know, just like me and every other person in the team, I know we don't want to let Titi Ojo go. She is just, go to her, to know more about her, go to her webpage, titiojo.com. You can see, she says she's a professional speaker, business strategist, project leader, and professional trainer. You would agree with me that she's all those and more. And she says, I create value, add value, and drive value. I'm an enabler. We are very lucky to have you today. Thank you so very much, Titi Ojo. I yield the floor now to Olufemi Boyede.